Hello, welcome back to another podcast episode of the Transfer Portal CFB presented by NoContextCFB. Got a dope episode ahead, previewing week 8, talk about conference realignment, all that fun stuff. With us today, we have Dylan Ruben King, Andrew Wilson, our special guest, Matt Brown of Extra Points. How are you doing, Matt? Pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here, fellas. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Matt does a lot of good work over he does good work doing like Extra Points, which is covering all this other stuff in college football, in college sports in general, not just the play on the field, but talk about realignment, NIL, all that fun stuff. If you want to expand on that, Matt, feel free to.
Sure, I'd be happy to. There's so much of the internet, right, wants to talk to you about who's going to win a college football game. And after being at Vox Media for a long time at SB Nation, and you realize that if you're trying to write college sports stuff to generate clicks, you kind of have to write about Alabama's depth chart. And there's a whole lot of schools that aren't Alabama and a whole lot of stories that aren't Alabama. So I write a newsletter that focuses on business news and higher education stories and political stories and all these things that shape who's good on Saturday, so everybody else can write about what actually happens on Saturday. So that's what I've been doing for Extra Points MB for the last year and a half.
Yeah, that's a really just cool way of talking about college sports and educating other people on it instead of just, talk about the vanilla, the Alabama, the Notre Dame, whatever it be. All right. So I know you went to that UConn UMass thriller. Can you just discuss that experience and what it was like being at that high-powered game showcasing two of the best programs in college football?
And I have to be honest, I had a great time. And I had a great time not just because I had never been to New England, and so I wanted to get out of my basement and go to one of these trips. And I didn't just have a great time because I'm an irony poisoned college football Twitter person like everybody else. But after having not been at a game in almost 2 years, to go someplace where there's 15,000 people here at this game, and fans who have not been invested or seen a winner in a while and still find joy in going to the game and participating, I think was a valuable experience. I had a great conversation with both athletic directors of both UConn and UMass. I talked to a lot of UMass students to get a better idea of why they keep going, even when their team is pretty terrible and is probably going to be terrible here for a minute. Get a better idea what success looks like at a different kind of school. I mean, I've covered a lot of college, a lot of football in my career. I've been to high school football games, college football games. I've been to professional ultimate frisbee a few times, a couple weird stuff. I've never been anywhere where so many people thanked me for being there and for taking them seriously as I did at UConn UMass. I would be happy to go back at a different time when maybe those programs are a little bit more successful.
That sounds amazing. It sounds like you were royalty there.
It was fun. Right? One of the great things about this job, right? You throw on a sports jacket that makes you really look like a stereotypical sports journalist. You wander up in the stands and you put your arm around a couple of drunk college kids. You give them a microphone and just say why are you here? And everybody wants to talk to you. It was very positive, and I'm very satisfied with the newsletter that came out from it.
Yeah, it was really good, and you excelled at that. So good for you.
Thank you.
Dylan, I want to ask you, what's the worst game you've attended?
It's funny. My first game I ever went to was 2019 Cal against Oregon. And that game, I was expecting fireworks because, both teams were solid. I think Cal was 4-1 and Oregon's only loss was to Auburn at that point. And so I was kind of expecting a high scoring game. And then Oregon comes out and turns it over 3 times. Travis Dye has a couple fumbles. Justin Herbert has an interception. It's just a really sloppy game. And so I think the final score is 17-7. And it was just the crowd wasn't into it. And I think the time that the crowd was the most excited was when Cyrus Habibi-Likio tackled a fan that ran onto the field and it went viral. That was the loudest that Autzen got that whole night. But still, it was awesome to be there at Autzen for my first game. But I definitely wanted to see a little more, kind of Oregon football, kind of high powered stuff. So, not quite what I imagined for my first game at Autzen.
But it seems to be the theme with Cal playing Oregon seems to be just those ugly, brutal games. But Oregon pulled out a big one there, and they did last week as well. Andrew, you're a Minnesota student. You've been going to some Minnesota games. I have a feeling I know what the worst game you've attended is. What is it?
Yeah, you know what it is. Little background story. I'm a freshman at University of Minnesota, so I go to all the football games, and I went to the Bowling Green game. I was expecting for us to blow them out, and we lost on homecoming. Absolutely heartbreaking. Just the defense played well. The offense was awful. They could not get the ball moving. Tanner Morgan didn't look great, but you know what? We got past it, and now we're 4-2. So.
Yeah, and you'll never forget your first disappointing loss like that. So you'll remember that forever. I know Doug,
Unfortunately.
who's with us at the transfer portal, also saw his Maryland Terrapins lose to Bowling Green. So Bowling Green is wreaking havoc on the transfer portal. The worst game I attended, I was like 9. I'm from Vegas, so I went to the BYU UCLA Las Vegas Bowl to see UCLA, very fun. No, we lost 17-16. There were 3 total points scored in the second half. It was like 30 degrees and really windy. It was miserable. And it pretty much set up what I should expect from UCLA from there on out is just mediocrity at its finest. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just classic UCLA, I guess. The next thing I wanted to speak about is, like Matt, we all love just the most random college football teams and in other sports too, like college basketball stuff. But, this term sickos is really taken off. Just sickos teams, and they're the bottom of the barrel teams in the less thought of conferences. I want to ask everyone what their favorite sickos team is and why. I'll start with you, Andrew.
I don't know if it's a sickos team because they're just not in the FBS. It's Montana. I have a lot of family that went to Montana. I've been to Missoula many times. Beautiful campus, beautiful stadium, beautiful city. And whenever there's not a game that I'm like super interested in and I see Montana, I'm like, you know what? I'll watch that. And, it's not the most popular team to be a fan of, but seeing them beat ranked Washington was definitely something that made my family just absolutely giddy.
Yeah, I know you and I might not clarify that as a sickos team, but I'm sure everyone everywhere else pretty much would, because let's face it, not many people want to watch FCS football like us. But
it's a shame.
It is a shame because that Eastern Washington Montana game was absurdly good. Oh, my bad. Dylan, you're out there in Washington. What's your favorite sickos team?
It's actually not a Northwest team. I would say Eastern Washington, but I'm not going to call that a sickos team because they're really fun to watch and have been for so long. Mine's actually Kansas. I really enjoy watching Kansas just for the thought of like potentially seeing a Kansas win. I followed Kansas basketball for a long time and, kind of trickled over to the football team. And, I did watch, I believe it was against Texas Tech a few years ago when they won, and the crowd rushed onto the field. And that was just like, kind of a neat experience to be able to watch a team like that. Like you were talking about with UConn and UMass, like people are still invested, and it's such a fun atmosphere for, a program that hasn't won very much to finally win. I just want to see them finally turn it around, and hopefully with Lance Leipold, it can happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, trying to find a Kansas win it's quite the voyage. So good luck on that journey. Matt, what's your favorite sickos team? I'm excited to hear your answer.
One of the things that I love about bad college football in a way that you don't see in bad college basketball, and certainly not with bad professional football, so there's a good chance you could see something you've never seen before in your life, even if you've been watching college football for 30 years. You could see a team, I think we just saw this like last week, lose a football game because they knelt instead of spiked the ball at the end of the game at the Division II level, I think. You see blocked extra points returned for touchdowns that give people 2 points. You see people finding really creative ways to lose. So like right now, I think one of the most exciting sickos teams to watch is Nebraska. Because there's 7 minutes left in that game, and it's probably going to be close. you know, there's going to be individual athletes that are capable of doing really high level things. And also, they're going to find a new and exciting and novel way to blow it. And after I've been watching college football as long as I have right now, if I'm not watching a team where there's championship expectations or potential on the line, I just want to see something different. And I know right now, fourth quarter Nebraska is going to give me something, good or bad, I'm probably not going to get anywhere else.
Very strong answer there. Nebraska's definitely been, I mean, I don't even know how to put in the words what they've been. It's been something else. The favorite Sickos team I went with, I think people would have expected me to say UTSA or something, but I'm not going to call them a Sickos team. They're on the up and up. I'm going with Northern Illinois, who had a lot of highs, and they're kind of experiencing the lows. I think just there's something about Northern Illinois that always attracts me of watching them play. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe it's the solid history they've had with Jordan Lynch and Chandler Harnish, or just the dope uniforms they have. But like watching their games in the fall, and like it just kind of makes you feel cold, and like you're experiencing that like 20-degree weather for some reason, even though I'm out here in Vegas and it's like, I don't know, 45, 50 in the fall. But watching their games, you just feel so cold. I don't know how else to explain it, but Northern Illinois I'm going with for my favorite Sickos team. And the next thing we'll talk about is, again, realignment is going crazy right now. We obviously saw Texas and OU kick it off by going to the SEC. The dominoes are starting to fall. The American teams leaving for Big 12. There's a bunch of stuff happening right now with the Conference USA. Basically, it's dissolving, it seems. Matt, what can you tell us about what's happening with the Conference USA?
There's a lot happening right now. And you have, I think, a couple of different movements. The fact that so many teams left for the American was really took, I think, people in Conference USA by surprise. They knew this month they were going to be losing teams, and they were planning on losing 2, maybe 4 teams. They weren't planning on losing 6. And they're disadvantaged right now because now the remaining institutions don't necessarily fit into a defined geography. Like, one of the big issues with CUSA beforehand was it didn't have a defined institutional fit. It wasn't a Texas league. It wasn't a Northern, it wasn't an Atlantic Coast league. It wasn't a public school league or private school league or anything. It was just, these are a bunch of schools that are in Division I and that they're like waiting to go somewhere else. I know that the administration at Old Dominion has been reaching out and pushing to potentially add more teams that are closer to Old Dominion. That would include James Madison, who is the FCS team that most badly wants to be FBS right now. That could potentially include Liberty, a school that I do not think is likely to go to the Sun Belt, and but could be an option now that Conference USA is more desperate than they were a couple of years ago. But a lot of this depends on what the Sun Belt ends up doing. If Marshall and Southern Miss leave, it's going to be even harder for them to be able to recruit any other members. And I wouldn't be shocked if the MAC decides, let's go give Western Kentucky a call. Let's go see if we can find a way to make us a 2-bid basketball league, particularly if we're not certain that all of our schools are going to remain FBS for the next 20 years. So this is a really pivotal week. If you want to paint this all as a morality play, right, we could just go back to a couple years ago when some administrators at the Sun Belt reached out to the Conference USA about potentially reconfiguring their leagues, about making this more regional. Conference USA said no. You had some athletic directors who were really pretty public about, we're the better league. We poach from you. You are beneath us. Well, now the turntables have turned, my friends, and now you're the poachee. And if you're Louisiana Tech, if you're UTEP, if you're Western Kentucky, you are going to find, or especially Florida International, you're in a really, really challenging spot right now.
This is so fun to track and talk about. I can't wait to see what happens. What we'll do next is we'll all kind of just recommend or say a realignment that we think should happen. And Matt, feel free to kind of let us know what you think of our suggestions. We'll start with your suggestion. What team do you think should realign and where?
Say, listen, you should call up UTEP and very politely encourage them to pursue independence. you should call up Louisiana Tech and maybe make the same suggestion and then say, look, we're relocating to Richmond. We are now a Tennessee, a Kentucky, a Virginia, North Carolina, Northern East Coast conference. And we're going to invite Liberty and hold our noses about it. And we're going to invite James Madison. And we're going to call a couple of our old friends in the Colonial Athletic. Maybe we bring Temple. And we call ourselves the Blue Mountain Conference or the Mountainish East Conference and try to rebuild that way. I think trying to maintain a foothold in 3 different regions is not sustainable.
All right, that's dope. Andrew, what about you?
I'm gonna go for the pick that's kind of obvious, but also like not really out there. It's Notre Dame. I would like to see Notre Dame in a conference, whether it's the ACC or the Big Ten. They're in Big Ten hockey. They were in ACC last year for football. I just think that it would benefit them greatly if they could add a conference championship to their resume for making the college football playoff. Because as of right now, their resume doesn't look good at all. Like, not saying that they're a contender to make the playoff, because they're not. But if you even looked at that schedule, 11-1, they don't really have a marquee win. They lost to Cincinnati. Like, what would you say it is? I don't know what it is. If you put them in the Big Ten or you put them in the ACC, they're guaranteed to have good wins against good teams. And then you have the possibility of getting the conference championship, whether it's the ACC. You have to go through teams like Clemson, possibly this year. There's a good Pitt team. There's a good NC State team. And then obviously with the Big Ten, you have to go through Ohio State. You have to go through Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Iowa. I just think it would look better for them in the future for getting into the playoff, and it would make them a more perennial contender to get in.
For what it's worth, I would completely disagree. I think with that, for a number of different reasons, right? Like, one, Notre Dame has a contractual obligation to join the ACC. They can't join the Big Ten until like 2034. If they formally commit to a league, they are required to go to this particular one. I think the idea that their football schedules are somehow not good enough is a reach. I mean, this year you're playing 9 Power 5 teams. You're playing one of the best, the highest profile teams in the MAC, and then you're playing, which is turned out to be the number 2 team in the country in Cincinnati. Generally, they only really play one lousy team. It's not Notre Dame's fault that Florida State, North Carolina, and USC suck on a given year, given that you sign these things 3 or 4 years, if not longer, in advance. Those are generally going to be good teams. We're also operating in the assumption here that we're going to have an expanded playoff. And if you go 10-2 in that schedule, even if some of these teams are ass, hopefully I can say ass on this podcast. Like I think you're going to be fine. What I think a lot of college fans forget that's unique about Notre Dame is that college football independence is not just about maximizing their playoff viability, and it's not just about money. They probably would make more money, honestly, in the ACC. It is an extension of Notre Dame's institutional and cultural identity. And the people that write Notre Dame gigantic checks really believe that, because remember, guys, the reason that Notre Dame is an independent at all is because the Big Ten, back at the turn of the century, because they were mega racist, said, you can't be here. You're the school of Eastern and European Catholic immigrants. We don't want a bunch of dirty Poles playing against Michigan football. And so then they decided they had to barnstorm, and that became part of what it means to be Notre Dame. So to accept a conference invitation, even if it makes them more money, in the eyes of the people that write them lots of checks, that dilutes what it means to be Notre Dame. It would be almost as if Baylor decided to no longer be a Baptist-sponsored institution, almost. So, I mean, like, look, they've made the playoff more than anybody else during this era than Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, and Oklahoma. I think they're fine.
Yeah, I understand that. I would agree with you, Matt. I just like watching Notre Dame play in the conference last year, just like it hurts for whatever reason. It's just not what Notre Dame should be doing. They should really just stick as an independent, and you did give good points as to why. Dylan, what about you for realignment?
I know it's probably not realistic, but I'll explain why I'm choosing this. I'm thinking Boise State to the Pac-12. I feel like if the Pac-12 wants to, get themselves onto the level of the Big Ten or the SEC, especially now that the SEC is expanding, I feel like they should expand too. And the commissioner has already said that they're not really looking to expand, but I think if you want to keep the narrative that Pac-12 is like the conference of champions and able to win and get into the playoff, then I feel like they should probably add more teams. And I think, with BYU going to the American, I think your top candidates are probably Boise State, maybe in Nevada, Fresno State. If you think about basketball, Boise State is usually pretty good at basketball as well. Nevada sometimes is really good in recent years. Fresno State is getting better at football. So I feel like Boise State would be probably the top candidate in terms of like, where they are. They've been kind of the dominator in the Mountain West for football. And I feel like I'd personally really like to see Nevada or Fresno State as well, but my pick would be Boise State.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, there's some compelling athletic reasons for that. The thing that's different about the Pac-12, and I mean, again, with realignment, one of the things that can be challenging is that it's not a meritocracy and it's not just about athletics in most cases. And so for the Pac-12 is, I think, one of the few leagues that takes this idea of institutional identity very seriously. You look in that league right now, not only they're not all academically elite institutions. Like, sorry if there's any Oregon State fans listening to this. It's not what you are. That's okay. It's not your mission, but they are all large research R1 in schools. Most of them are in the AAU. And that's really important to the presidents who are ultimately the people that make these decisions at places like Cal and Stanford and UCLA. The problem with Boise State, it's got a great football tradition, great football program. It's become a national brand in a way that most Pac-12 schools aren't, but it has two big things working against it. One, it's in Boise. Boise's growing, but Boise does not produce good athletes. Boise has to recruit out of state. There might be one or two FBS quality kids out of Southern Idaho a year. That's not an attractive place to try and grow your footprint. The other problem is Boise was a truck driving JUCO not that long ago. It's not, they're not bad people. It's not like a bad institution. It has a different mission. It's not nearly the same kind of school as these other as the Utah or Colorado or UCLA. So Boise's chances of getting in the Pac-12, and for that matter, Nevada or Fresno's chances are zero. It doesn't matter if they win 3 national championships in a row. Like they simply don't meet that profile for good or for ill. If you took everything about Boise State and picked them up and stuck them in Dallas, they'd be in a power conference. But the thing that kind of sucks about this system is it's not always fair.
Yeah, that's the hard truth right there, is just people aren't attracted to the locations that some of these schools are in, and it's brutal. The one I went with is one that you kind of skimmed over earlier, Matt. I went with James Madison I couldn't really decide between the Conference USA and the Sun Belt, so I'm kind of in limbo there, but I think JMU going to either of those conferences would be fantastic for not only JMU's program, but whichever conference would pick them up. This is one of the FCS powers, as we all know, and they've been just trying so hard to get into FBS play. I think their time has come. I think they're ready for it. I'm going to just speak about them to the Sun Belt here, since we kind of spoke about them to the Conference USA earlier. The Sun Belt, obviously they're poaching some Conference USA schools right now, and they're an intriguing option to have some of these just strong football powers that JMU could join with Coastal, App State, ULL, potentially maybe Marshall goes to the Sun Belt. There's a lot to like to add JMU to a conference that's getting so much stronger in football and clearly is on a mission to become a serious Group of 5 football conference, and not just be it's Fun Belt. We're playing on weekdays where we've got chaos going on Saturdays. They're trying to be serious. I think bringing in JMU to the Sun Belt would help them become that serious Group of 5 football conference. So that's what I went with.
I don't have too much of a complaint about that. I would agree. This is probably your single best candidate to move up from the FCS. They have the resources, they have the facilities, they have the desire, they have an established fan base. It's in a part of the country where you can recruit, whether that's Conference USA or whether that's the Sun Belt, depending on what other people do. I think they could really be additive in a couple of different sports, right? They got a great softball program. I think they just finished a new basketball facility. They're not going to finish top 20 anytime soon, but that's a great program. And the Sun Belt has had great success adding programs like them recently.
Yeah, JMU is definitely a program that we should all be tracking in realignment. We'll move on to player focus here. This is something we do every week, and we've had a lot of success doing it. We'll start with you, Dylan. Who are you looking at this weekend?
Yeah, I tried not to go with an Oregon player. I usually try not to, but I feel like after the performance that Kayvon Thibodeau had in the second half against Cal, it's hard not to pick him when he's going up against a guy like Sean Ryan, who's probably going to be a first-round pick in the draft. I'm just really excited to see how he bounces back, because one of the things that some critics have talked about with him in terms of his draft stock is kind of consistency. Sometimes he blows up, and then other games he'll kind of be contained. If he can pop off against a really good UCLA offensive line, then I think the critics will kind of peep down from there. But I mean, just the way that he dominated in that second half after missing the first half due to a targeting call against Stanford a couple weeks ago, I don't think I've ever seen an edge rusher dominate one half more than that before, in person, especially because I was up in the press box and he was just manhandling the offensive line for Cal. So I'm going with him to, be a big part in stopping that UCLA run and getting after DTR, because they're really going to need him to be at his best against a team like that.
Yeah, what Kayvon did last week in one half is absolutely ridiculous. Watching him obviously you gotta watch in person, we gotta watch on TV. He is putting a tackle on his butt every single rep. It was so impressive to watch. They had him in coverage for a play inside the 10 and he locked up. He is a freak of nature, and draft experts that are criticizing him for production are tripping, because he is one of a kind, and you're not always going to get the absurd level of production. Sometimes you come back to earth. Sometimes you're being schemed against so hard. There's three guys trying to prevent you from getting to the quarterback, like you saw with Chase Young. Kayvon is one of one. He is special. He's the first pick, and we can't wait to watch him against UCLA. Hopefully he doesn't hurt us too much. Andrew, who are you looking at this weekend?
I'm gonna go with a guy who I was high on going into the season. He's going into their biggest game of the season, Pitt at Clemson. I'm gonna look at Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett has made so much money this year. He has vaulted his name into the conversation for being a top 2 round pick. And Pitt is having an amazing season. They're having one of the best seasons in quite like 10 years, I'd say. And if Pitt wants to be a true contender in the ACC, they got to get through Clemson. Clemson isn't a bad team. They just don't have a good offense. Their defense is still very good. I am going to be very excited to see this Pitt offense, which has been explosive all year long, going up against a very elite Clemson defense. So I'm going to look at Kenny Pickett to see what he can do.
I had my doubts about Kenny going into the season. You talked about Kenny on our draft talk show before the season. You were praising him, and you nailed it 100%. He has been spectacular in every facet of the passing game, and he's got a big test ahead of him, and he could make, a heck of a lot more money with a strong performance this weekend. Matt, who are you looking at this week?
I'm really interested, honestly, in this Oregon State Iowa State game. I feel like Iowa State came into this season with a ton of hype, and after struggling the first 2 weeks, has been completely erased from public consciousness. Here they are. They're hosting number 8 Oklahoma State, and they're a 7-point favorite. I think a big reason for that is because Breece Hall has really rounded into form after uncharacteristically struggling the first couple of games of the season. He was really shut down against Iowa. He struggled against Northern Iowa. He's averaging over 6.5 yards a carry over the last 3 games. Iowa State came within a whisker of winning at Baylor. They've clobbered both Kansas teams right now. I think he was almost at 200 last week. He needs to have a big game here, but it's not common that a top 10 team goes on the road to someone that's unranked and not that close to being ranked and being that big of a dog, which makes me think that Vegas knows something that maybe us dumb reporters don't. And Hall may be a big reason why.
Yeah, the spread here is shocking. Oklahoma State has not gotten any respect from Vegas all season long. It's probably got to do with their early season struggles against Tulsa and Missouri State, but they are getting no respect. So Matt's telling y'all to watch out for Brees Hall this week. Y'all will do that. I'm going with someone I expected a lot more production from. It's Romeo Dubs, the receiver from Nevada. I mean, going in, I have him as a top 5 receiver in the country, and he's obviously not that right now. And his production is not where it needs to be, which is really surprising to me. I thought he was going to take just ascend to another level in his play, become more all-around receiver, and we haven't really seen that. I need to see him get more targets this week. They're in a huge showdown against Fresno State. This is a big-time game in the Mountain West, and I think Dubs, this is his time. 8+ catches, 120+ yards, a touchdown or 2. Carson Strong is going to need to find Dubs over and over again, and he could torch this Fresno State secondary in what should be a high-scoring affair, which will lead us into the 10 games that we are picking. And we're starting off with an FCS clash between the nerds, Harvard and Princeton. Dylan, who do you have in this game?
I had to do some research because I haven't really paid too close attention to these two schools because I'm on the complete opposite side of the country. I went with Harvard in a 1-point game. I went 31-30. 2 really good offenses against 2 really good defenses. I think the defensive averages will probably inflate after this game because of how good both the offenses are. But Princeton's on a 3-game win streak against Harvard, but Harvard's won the last 4 of the last 6 in Princeton. So I'm going to go with Harvard in a really close one.
Harvard in a close one. What do you have in this game, Matt?
I think both of these schools should be cast off and thrown into the ocean. But failing that here, I think I like Princeton's defense a little bit better than anything that Harvard does, and we'll take the Tigers in a short one that I will not watch, or a close one that I will not watch.
Got it. Yeah, not many people will watch it since it's on ESPN Plus and on a Saturday. So, but Andrew, who do you have in Harvard Princeton?
Yeah, I'm gonna go along with Matt here. I like Princeton's defense, and a player to watch in that game is Cole Smith, the Princeton quarterback. He's got about a 70% completion percentage and only thrown 2 picks on the year.
Bet. We'll split this at 2-2. I'm going with Harvard 30-27. Not going to act like I know much about either team. Princeton has immaculate uniforms though, but I'm going to take Harvard because my cousin goes to law school there. So going with Harvard in a close one as well. And then our next game, Wake Forest at Army. Matt, who do you have in this matchup?
This is another like sneaky, really interesting game, I think. I don't think this is an especially good Army team, but what's so frustrating about playing them, of course, is they take the air out of the ball and they limit things into a 10-possession game where even if you have better athletes all over the field, which Wake only kind of does, they're a very, very hard team to blow out. I want to say the spread's like around 3. I think Wake can cover that, but I don't think by much. I feel like this is going to be a 1-possession game late in the 4th quarter. Wake will probably win, but no one is going to enjoy themselves watching this game unless you're a troop.
All right, Andrew, who do you have?
I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I'm going to take Army. I don't think Wake Forest is that good of a team. I think they do deserve the undefeated record that they have, but they easily could have lost to Syracuse. There's another team that they could have lost to that I'm blanking on right now. And I think going into West Point is not an easy thing to do. And I think that Army has been very close to beating some of those better teams. They were close to beating Wisconsin. Of course, Wisconsin's not that good. And I'm double checking defensive yards right now. When you go up against Army, you have to defend the run. Wake Forest right now is giving up 173 yards on the ground per game. That's not that good. In fact, that's actually pretty bad.
So you're going with Army in that one?
I'm going with Army in the upset.
Dylan, what about you?
Yeah, Matt was talking about the spread in this one being about 3. I think Wake Forest just gets over that. I got Wake Forest 28-24. This actually is probably the biggest test for Wake Forest for those reasons that Matt gave. Wake Forest gave up 354 rushing yards to Syracuse last week, which we know what kind of a dog Sean Tucker is, but that's a lot of rushing yards. And Army runs for about 300 a game. So the one thing that's going to be really interesting, though, is to see how Army can contest with Wake Forest offense, because Wake Forest has a really high scoring offense. Ja'Cory Roberson's, I think it was one of our top 5 receivers in the country. I think it might have been Doug's. So But I think this game is going to come down to fourth downs. And Army is one of the best teams in the country at converting. They convert 3 out of every 4. But Wake Forest has the best defense on fourth down. So I think this comes down to like a fourth down stop late in the game. I got Wake Forest.
That's a good call that we'll look forward to seeing if that pans out. I'm siding with Andrew here. I went with Army 28-24. It's going to be a fun clash between Army wanting to control all the time possession and Wake Forest wanting to play so quick and hit big plays over and over again, get the ball down the field as quick as possible. It gets a fun game between two contrasting styles of offenses. I think Army's run game is going to be the difference here. I think they're fourth down success rate is going to be high in this one because it's always fourth and inches, fourth short. So I'm going to go with Army there. And just how the season has gone, how can you not pick Army in this one? With how the season has gone, you got to know that Wake's undefeated magical run is coming to an end and that more chaos will ensue. Our next game is Dylan's Oregon Ducks against my UCLA Bruins. We'll start with you, Andrew.
Vegas is kind of trying to trip me up here because when I last checked, UCLA was favored by, I want to say, 1.5 or 2 points. And I understand Oregon hasn't had the best of performances as of late, but neither has UCLA. They're not looking like a dominant team like they did against like Hawaii, where they just ran the ball on everybody. I like Oregon to win this one close. I think Kayvon Thibodeau can get the best of Sean Ryan, and I think he's going to be able to put enough pressure on DTR. And yeah, I like Oregon to beat them probably about 27-24.
All right. You made Dylan happy there. Matt, who do you have in Oregon, UCLA?
Man, honestly, I don't know, right? These are tough questions because these aren't the reasons that people pay for my newsletter. I feel like if I bet on UCLA, I would need a new house because I feel like nothing about the way that team's roster construction or their per play efficiency or anything that they've done makes a lick of sense. They could win this game by 20. They could get completely mauled off the line of scrimmage and end up with 89 total yards. Like I feel like all outcomes are possible. When in doubt, I tend to defer to the team that's got the best player. So I'd go with a slight Oregon victory, but I feel if I had to give you confidence points on this, I would give you none. You'll know say.
Gotcha. Dylan, what about you?
This is a tough one. I think this is the toughest test that Oregon's had since the Ohio State game for sure. You know, Oregon's had their struggles against Stony Brook, against Arizona, against Stanford, against Cal. Like every game since then, you've seen that first unit kind of struggle. And I think you absolutely cannot have that against a team that can, you know, when it's on like UCLA. It's probably the biggest test remaining on their schedule too. If Oregon is going to prove to, you know, the college football world, to the college football playoff committee, if there's even a lick of a chance there that they mean business, they have to, you know, impressively win in Pasadena once again. Oregon has a history of winning in Pasadena, winning big games there. Oregon has to find a rhythm in the run game, on offense and defense. They have to be able to slow down Zach Charbonnet, Britton Brown, and they have to get Travis Dye going. I like Oregon in a 1-score game. I got them 34-28 in this one. But I could easily see this being a slip up for Oregon as well.
Yeah, so this is interesting because both teams share similarities in that they both just play down to their opponent's level and they are not playing up to their potential in any game, it seems, unless they're playing an opponent on their same level. So it's going to be really interesting. I have UCLA winning 31-27 because I can't pick against us. Which is funny because I picked ASU against us, but it's just these big games I feel like we can win, and then it's the games that we should win that I don't think we could win. Very weird, but I think what you'll see from UCLA is a lot more in the run game. I think they're going to try to take Kayvon out as much as possible. Alec Anderson at right tackle and Sean Ryan at left tackle, an insanely good tackle duo here. I think they're going to run behind Anderson a lot if Kayvon's on Ryan's side, and then vice versa. I think you're going to see Dorian run the ball a good bit as well. Maybe the option game comes out. You never know with Chip Kelly. I think I'm just gonna go with UCLA in a close one though, and I'm gonna be prepared to lose by like 3 touchdowns because that's about how it goes as a UCLA fan.
Don't be prepared for that.
I'm always prepared for it. Our next game is Wisconsin Purdue. Purdue coming off the highs of a win over number 2 in the country. Iowa, they're now ranked, which kind of surprised me. Matt, who do you have in Wisconsin Purdue?
I think both these teams suck. I've watched both of them, and while Purdue has a pair of, I think, really impressive wins, and there are individual components about both teams that are good. David Bell's awesome, great college football player. I definitely don't think Purdue is one of the 25 best teams in the country. They are able to do one thing at kind of an above average level, and if they were facing a competent secondary, their offense is not going to be able to do anything. This defense against a team that's actually trying to score has not really been especially effective. And then Wisconsin's offense has been horrific. This has been the most ineffective running game I think I've seen from Wisconsin probably almost in my lifetime. As somebody who's been watching football for, I think I'm a little bit older than you fellas, but it has not been this punchless in a while. And when in doubt, take the team that does one thing better than anybody else, which I guess is produce passing offense. But I whoever wins this game, I think would be a great candidate to lose another very stupid one very quickly. I really don't think either of these teams are especially good.
I completely understand where you're coming from. Dylan, who do you have in Wisconsin Purdue?
Yeah, with just the way that this season has just been dumb, I feel like Purdue could, 1 week after beating the number 2 team rather handedly in Kinnick, could lose to a team like Wisconsin at home. I just feel like it could happen. I don't think it will. I think this will be just an ugly Big Ten defensive game. Purdue's actually pretty underrated on defense so far. Wisconsin obviously has a really good defense, but I like Purdue's offense a lot more than Wisconsin. So I think they'll make a couple more plays there. I have Purdue 17-7 in a slugfest.
Seems like one of the worst games that anybody could ever tune into. Andrew, who do you have?
Yeah, I mean, what has Wisconsin done on the offensive side of the ball that makes us think that they can keep up with Purdue, who has such a dynamic player like David Bell? They haven't done anything. Graham Mertz is one of the worst performing quarterbacks this year. And I mean, coming into this year, there weren't really Heisman hopes, but there were hopes that he was going to be a competent quarterback. And he hasn't been. The running game hasn't been there for Wisconsin. They don't have a dynamic weapon really at all. The defense hasn't even looked amazing. And Purdue, coming off of a big win against Iowa, they definitely could disappoint. They could definitely be on their high horse and they fall off. But if they were going up against almost any other team besides Wisconsin in the Big Ten West, I would say, give me the other team by 10. But Wisconsin is just so bad. I can't pick them. Give me Purdue.
Yeah, I get that. Wisconsin has nothing on the offensive side. Purdue has David Bell. Everything should say to take Purdue here, and I'm just going to go with Wisconsin 27-17. I think it's going to be ugly. I think this screams letdown game for Purdue coming off the highs of that win against Iowa. I think they might just come out flat. I don't think they're a top 25 team. I think that could play into the egos of their team, possibly, if that's something they look at. Never know, but they are not one of the best 25 teams in the country. You beat Iowa, sure. What else have you done? I'm going with Wisconsin there. Our next game is Oklahoma State at Iowa State. Andrew, who do you have?
I've been impressed with how Oklahoma State's played this year. They've got a very talented defense, and they had a good comeback against Texas last week. But Iowa State has started to kind of get the ball rolling. If the spread wasn't 7.5 in favor of Iowa State, I would probably fall for it, and I would probably say Oklahoma State. But I think Vegas does have an idea of what's going to happen. We never know what's going to happen in college football. Give me the Cyclones here in a 10-point game.
Gotcha. What about you, Dylan?
I have Iowa State in an upset in this one. I think Breece Hall is going to have a big day. I like them to win by double scores.
Yeah, that's Matt's pick right there for player focus, Breece Hall. And I understand you have to go, unfortunately, Matt. So I'll have you pick the rest of our games real quick since you're our guest picker. So give me your pick for Oklahoma State, Iowa State real quick.
Yeah, I like Iowa State in that one. I think their offense is going to get back on the right track. I think Oklahoma State's playing over their skis a little bit. I'll take the Cyclones by 10.
All right. And then Clemson at Pitt.
The most Pitt possible thing is to lose by 40 points to Clemson. The thing what makes Pitt football so delightful is that their higher purpose has just been to ruin the season for somebody else for a long time, beating the Miami or the Clemson or the Florida State when they're good. And now Pitt is the good thing. So, and a tribute to early 2000s Clemson. I think Pitt is going to Clemson, and Clemson's offense is going to look competent for the first time this season, and they're going to lose 30-20.
So you have Clemson in that game?
I have Clemson. Yeah.
Okay. And then a game more up your alley, San Diego State Air Force.
Man, I got to be honest with you. One of the things what's funny about San Diego State, and this is a joke that I've made and has been made to me by people in this industry, is I think they are perennially the best college football team that nobody in America ever watches, because so many of their premier games are against Pac-12 opponents with their in time windows where most of the country is not really seeing them. They've been on CBS Sports Network, which isn't wildly picked up everywhere. They're very quietly undefeated. So quiet, I haven't watched a down of San Diego State football this year, and I've only watched a little bit of Air Force. I'll take the Fighting Brady Hoax, but I don't feel good about any of it.
Yeah, I could tell you right now, San Diego State is not a fun team to watch.
I have not enjoyed watching them ever.
Yeah, they this year they are not fun to watch. The game last week against San Jose State was pathetic in every facet of the sport. Nevada, Fresno State, your next pick. Who do you have there?
Both of these, because I feel like I've been crapping on everybody I've been talking about here so far. Like I'll pump up these two. I think these are both great football teams. Both of them have excellent quarterbacks. They have fun skill position talent. They are not surprising. They're well coached, and they're well coached by, I think, staffs that are going to produce multiple other head coaches in the near future. I think Fresno is a slightly more complete team than Nevada, but they're both excellent. Like right now, I would take both of them by a touchdown over Purdue. I take them over. I think they're better than most teams in the Big Ten West or a lot of other ACC teams. Like it's a shame that one of them has to lose. I think Fresno's a little bit better.
Yeah, it is a shame that one of them has to lose. Nevada did beat Purdue a few years ago. Brandon Dalton hit that game-winning field goal on his first career kick. And you did speak to both coaching staffs. Kalen DeBoer and Jay Norvell both have bright futures ahead of them and should be getting calls from higher programs in this next cycle. And these are just two teams that we are so excited about all year long. And it's a shame one of them has to lose. Next up is SC at Notre Dame. Who do you have there?
I guess Notre Dame. If you're watching this game and you don't have money on it, or you didn't go to one of these schools, what are you doing? Like, I think this USC team is like capital B bad. Notre Dame is bad at some things, but I'll take Notre Dame by several points.
It's one of the rare, two great traditional schools, and it's a sickos game.
You know what? This is a sickos game. That's a good point. It is rare that you have a combination of helmet game, which is like when two very big brands play each other, and sickos game. This is a sickos helmet game. That's a good point.
Very true. Utah at Oregon State, the final game we'll have you pick.
Utah is absolutely rounding into form. It was surprising at the beginning of the season how un-Utah this team looked, in that they were being physically dominated at the point of attack and on the line of scrimmage in their early part of the season, which is typically what you can hang your hat on with Utah. You know what their quarterback play is. Best case scenario, only going to be slightly above average. They have better depth at wide receiver, but they've never really had a great passing attack, but they've been able to just maul everybody within the conference. They weren't able to do that at the beginning of the season. I think they're finally healthy now. They have had to go through a truly ridiculous amount of team trauma. That's a difficult thing to process when you're 19 and 20. And I think you have to kind of you mention that whenever you're talking about this program, but they are, as a team, playing the best football in the Pac-12 right now.
Yeah, the trauma that they've experienced is so heartbreaking, and you can't help but root for this team. So, well, hopefully they do win. And thank you for coming on to our podcast and talking college football with us and all the other things that make college football great. Extra points. Where can people find you and what you do on Twitter and all that stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Matt Brown EP. You can find me on Instagram at Extra Points MB, and find the newsletter at extrapointsmb.com. It is a newsletter that covers all of the off the field stories that shape college athletics. Broken a couple of conference realignment stories over the past couple of weeks, particularly at the FCS level. I imagine there's going to be more coming on that very soon. If you want to understand how name, image, and likeness really works, you want to understand why schools sponsor some sports and not others, and why some schools that suck at sports are trying to move up to Division I or do FBS. You'll find out all those things at Extra Points. You could subscribe for free and get 2 newsletters a week, or support independent journalism and get all 4 for just $8 a month.
Very cool. Thank you again, Matt, for coming on here. Appreciate you, and we'll let you get out of here. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I got. It looks like I got to make a quick phone call before I pick up my kids. Thanks for inviting me, guys. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Good luck. All right, so we'll just kind of go back and rewind, and we'll do our picks. We left off with you guys picking Oklahoma State, Iowa State. The spread makes no sense that it's Iowa State -7. I think a pick here, so I'm going with Oklahoma State 38-30. Won't talk on it too much more. I just think that while Vegas might know something we don't, I think it's more that they are not giving Oklahoma State any credit at all. And I want to root for Jack Mack in his playoff prediction for Oklahoma State, because how could you not? That'll bring us to Clemson Pitt. Clemson, you ain't a playoff team. You are a bad team. Andrew, who do you have in Clemson Pitt? Can you pick it your guy to watch this week?
My guy to watch is going to explode. Pitt, this is probably a bit of too bold of a prediction. I think Pitt wins this game by 20. Clemson doesn't have a good offense. I think Pitt can blow up Clemson's defense. I think that's how good their offense is. I don't like Clemson's offense at all. I think Pitt's defense isn't the worst. It's not great, but look at what Clemson's brought to the table. Nothing. Uiagalele's not been very good this year. And just the rest of the wide receiver core for Clemson's just, they don't get separation. They don't get a ton of production. I like Pitt in a big win over Clemson.
How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, ditto. Mine was Pitt 41-20. I like Pitt, their offense a lot more than I like anything Clemson could do on offense. Their offense has just been anemic. We talked about Wisconsin's, like if you put Clemson against Wisconsin, that would be just the ugliest, just most garbage offensive performance you've ever seen. Sorry to Andrew, but it's true. There's just no part of Clemson's offense that tells me that they can win on the road against a Pittsburgh offense that has put up damn near 50 points a game. And they have Kenny Pickett, who's been playing like a Heisman candidate. You have Jordan Addison, one of the best receivers in the Power 5, maybe even in the country. I think Pitt makes a statement in the ACC and in the country, and they win over Clemson big.
I don't know. People that are ranking Clemson don't watch college football. Can we just put that out there? This Clemson team is bad. Dabo Sweeney, your voodoo magic is expiring. Oh man, I'm going with Pitt here, but I'm not going with blowout. I'm going with 28-17. I think Clemson's defense will be able to play well still. Clemson's just horrific though. They are bad. The offense doesn't have any sort of chemistry. They're not clicking at all. The O-line stinks. The receivers don't get separation. They don't have a run game. Their run game is DJ, let's run the ball, man. QB power. Kobe Pace has stepped up though. I know he's solid last week, I think, but DJ I feel so bad for DJ because he is set up for failure. He is so much better than he's able to show, and I feel so bad for him. He gets so much hate, and it's so undeserving. If you put him on dang near any other team in the country, he's going to be like playing so well and playing at such a high level, potential Heisman level. I feel terrible for that kid, and all the hate he's getting is so undeserved, and it's disgusting that people who say they watch college football are going to give him this much hate. If you're truly watching what Clemson's doing, you would know he's not the problem. He's just like set for failure. I don't know how else to explain it. Excited to watch Andrew's guy Kenny Pickett. Super excited to watch Jordan Addison, the prolific receiver, and see what he could do on for Pitt. Our next game is San Diego State Air Force. Let's run through this one real quick. Andrew, who do you have?
I think San Diego State's one of the most overrated teams in the country. They should not be ranked. They're not that good. They haven't played a very good team. Their best win is Utah when they weren't really getting everything going. I like Air Force to win this one big.
Dylan?
Yeah, I like Air Force in a kind of a low scoring game. I got them 28-20. Is that low scoring? I don't know.
It's 40. I think that actually goes over on the bang line. I have Air Force 24-13. SDSU just average to me. Them being ranked top 25 is sick in my opinion. They are not good if you watch them play. There is nothing about their brand of football that is appealing. There is nothing that they have done that makes you go, that's impressive. Aside from the 2-point conversion contest against Utah, I suppose. But no, I think Air Force is going to be ranked next week after a big win here. I think their defense is going to be huge in this game. Maybe come up with a defensive touchdown or something. And SDSU has quarterback controversy. I don't see how you could pick them. Nevada Fresno State next. Dylan, your Fresno State beloved team, my beloved Wolfpack. This is going to be super fun. Who do you have?
Sorry, I was just freaking out because I saw Whitney Merciless is apparently joining the Packers, and I got excited there. I'm also very excited to talk about this game. I think Fresno State and Nevada are the two best teams in the Mountain West. I think I expected that at this point. I wish that Fresno State would have looked a bit better against a Hawaii team that hasn't looked very good. But I think this is going to be like an instant classic kind of game. I have Fresno State winning in a close one, 37-35. I think they get a 2-point conversion stop at the end of the game.
It's fun how our Power 5 teams, our favorite teams, are playing against each other, and our Group of 5 beloved teams are playing against each other this week too. So bad blood between us. Andrew, who do you have? You're an innocent bystander.
Yeah, I'm kind of caught in the I'm kind of caught in the fire right now. I don't know what to do. I am gonna go Nevada though. I think that their offense has gotten better the last few weeks. I think they're just a better team than they were a few weeks ago. The loss to Kansas State, they look a lot better than they did in that game. I think we're going to see a big game from Carson Strong here, solidify his draft stock.
Yeah, hopefully you are correct. I agree with Dylan. I think this is going to be a really fun game that is, one of the classics of the season in the Group of 5. Too bad this game is on Fox Sports 2. Awful. At least we could watch it. At least not like some garbage network. But I have Nevada in a high scoring affair, 44-38. I think they're going to score a touchdown with like 5-6 minutes left that puts them up double digits and seals it. And then Fresno State comes back down, scores, onside kick drama. I think this is going to be a super fun game. Again, looking at Romeo Doubs to finally go nuclear. It's time for him to step up. This is the biggest game of their season because of the implications in the Mountain West West Division. This is a huge game, and Carson Strong's going to go out there and impress every NFL scout in attendance. Brings us to a much lesser game that nobody cares about. SC Notre Dame, gross. Andrew, who do you have? Yuck.
I mean, we know Notre Dame is the better team, but wouldn't it just like not surprise us if USC were to just win? Like, Notre Dame isn't good. They don't know who their starting quarterback is. For all we know, Drake London could have 200,000 yards and USC would win by 14. I am going to take Notre Dame here because I think USC is awful. I don't think they're a good team. I want to see, can they finally decide who their starter is? Because I don't know if they know. Like, they have 3 quarterbacks and they play all 3 of them. They play Pine, they play Buckner, they play Cone. Please just pick one of the 2 good decisions, which would be Pine or Buckner. Personally, I like Pine. I could definitely be fine with Buckner. I want to stop seeing Jack Cone on the football field. He's not that good. Just please make a decision.
Dude, I need Cone on the sideline standing next to Pine so I could get the Pine Cone image. I've been waiting for a month plus and I can't get it. It's so annoying. I like, It's very annoying. Dylan, who do you have?
Speaking of quarterbacks, I'm gonna make a very hot take here, and I don't think their success is all his fault, or their lack of success is all his fault. But I think USC should give Jackson Dart a try again, because Keaton Slovis was out and they looked electric against Washington State. And Washington State has a pretty okay defense compared to what they usually have. I just think that, if they throw out Jackson Dart, I just feel like there's more energy with their offense. I feel like Drake London kind of gets less force fed. I think that's not saying it's a complaint. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the country. I just feel like the offense flows a little better when they had Dart out there. But I feel like regardless of who they have, I think Notre Dame is the better team, and I've got them winning 31-17.
All right. I think with Slovis, I feel like maybe his time at SC is up. I think there's opportunity for him to excel elsewhere and pick back up all his NFL draft potential. I think he should look into transferring after a season. Maybe SC moves on to Dart. I think Slovis is set up for success almost anywhere else. I think he should look into transferring.
And USC is bringing in Devin Brown too, who's a really good, really talented quarterback next year. So I feel like if he was to somehow stay, I feel like it would be, he'd be setting himself up for even worse failure and down the line.
You know where he could go? He could go across town. He could come to UCLA. We'll bring him in. I think everyone would expect me to pick Notre Dame here. And to that, I say, why? What has Notre Dame done this year that makes me want to pick them in this season that is so random? I'm picking SC 31-24 because it makes no sense. Nobody should want to pick SC in this game. But as we talked about before Matt had to leave, it's a sickos helmet game. This is a sickos game it's just in every way possible. Neither of these teams are good. They're two historic programs that just stink this year. Notre Dame is not as good as their record shows, in my opinion. I don't think they're a good team. Oh my gosh. I think Drake London, spectacular talent, future NFL stud, could have a big game, but I'm going to look at Michael Trigg, the tight end that's like 6'4", 260 or something. He is a monster. He's the next elite talent SC has in the pass attack game. Whether you line him up at tight end or out wide, this kid is a freak of nature. He's a monster. I think he could have a big time presence in this game that really wows people and shows them what's to come in the Michael Trigg future. I don't know what I was going to say there, but I think SC is just going to shock people and win that game for no reason. Brings us to our final game. Utah at Oregon State. Playing at Corvallis is brutal. Who do you have, Andrew?
Man, I think we gave the Beavs too much credit too quickly. I don't think we said they're a top 25 team because no one thought they were. But I think we gave them a little bit too much credit for beating teams that they, like, looking back, they should have beaten. And we wrote off Utah too quickly. I think Utah is getting the ball rolling, and I think that Utah is going to end up playing in the Pac-12 championship against Oregon, and they're going to do so with Cameron Rising, who you thought you could go a podcast without a pun. He's been rising to the occasion.
Nice, man. Glad you got that out there. Dylan, who do you have?
Why did I know that was coming? Honestly, I've really liked what I've seen from Oregon State this year. I know as an Oregon fan, I'm going to get, crucified for saying that, but I really like what they've done with Chance Nolan at quarterback. They kind of weren't figuring it out early on, and he's come in and just kind of changed it. And he's had his ups and downs. He's not, he's not Sean Mannion or anything like that, but their running back duo of BJ Baylor and Deshaun Fenwick is going to take them places. And I think they will in this game. I like Oregon State in a close one, 31-28.
I'm surprised that this game isn't Pac-12 after dark. It has like a 4:30 or 5 kickoff for some reason, which I don't think there are any late games this week, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that, which is bizarre.
There's a Friday night UW against Arizona, absolute matinee right there if you want to watch.
Gosh.
There's that, and
Utah at Oregon State is 6:30 Central.
So that's 4:30. Yeah, the
only
is Hawaii, New Mexico State, which is a rematch of a game they played like a month ago. Bizarre that that's happening. I don't know why there's no late football this week. It doesn't make any sense. The UCLA Oregon game should have had like a 5:30 kickoff, in my opinion. I don't know why it doesn't. Maybe because of baseball is interfering. Yuck. Manfred's product stinks. Yeah, my pick for this game, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm going with Utah 34-28. I think playing in Corvallis is tough, but I think it's tougher to play when it's dark, when it's Pac-12 after dark. I think Utah is just, they're too tough to play against right now. I just think that the tragedies that they've had to experience are so just horrific, and it's hard to comprehend that they've had to do this back-to-back years to the day, I believe. Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe, I think they're going to go out there every game from here on out and play so hard and play for them and impress them in every facet of Utah football. And I think like Andrew said, I think they're going to win the Pac-12 South. I think this is the feel-good story of the season. And I think they're just going to continue to impress people and make waves. We didn't see characteristic Utah football early in the season. They're finally coming into true form. So I'll take Utah 34-28 and get Brant Keithy the ball. He's your best offensive player. Get him the ball more. Come on. That will.
They should give Britton Covey the ball so he can flex on some dudes some more.
True, in his 23rd year at Utah. Also in that game, Tyjon Lindsey, this isn't talked about, the Oregon State receiver. He's been in college forever too. Him and Tate Martell, same recruiting class at Ohio State. And then Tyjon didn't go to Ohio State. He went to Nebraska because he fell into the GBR thing, and then he transferred over. Whatever, that's another saga for another day. But yeah, he's just been in college forever. That'll do it for us, though. Unfortunately, Matt did have to leave earlier, which is okay. Got his picks, and best of luck to him as he tries to climb the mountain and win 8 games and come into first place in the Transfer Portal CFB guest picker standings. It was a fun show talking college football with him, and the other stuff that he talks about, the revenue and the realignment, all that stuff was fun. Good talking football with you, Andrew and Dylan. Thank y'all for coming on here and doing this. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and on YouTube and like the video and follow us on Spotify and Apple. Follow us on Twitter and keep supporting us as we continue to grow and do good things. Because I'll be honest, a lot of the stuff that we're putting out, aside from our game picks, is very good content. We are dotting a lot of stuff, and I mean, we deserve more love. I don't know. And Andrew's out there doing good NFL draft stuff. Dylan's out there doing a bunch of good stuff for Oregon. We've got people doing game reviews, which are super fun to read. So I would just look out for that and continue to help support us so we could keep this going and maybe expand in the future. And yeah, so thank y'all. And that'll do it for us. Goodbye.